Okay, buckle up, because what you're about to hear will fundamentally rewrite everything you thought you knew about one of America's most iconic automotive brands. Forget the muscle cars, the Hemi engines, the Ram trucks. For a moment, erase all those roaring images from your mind. We're going far deeper, into a hidden history, a saga of betrayal, ambition, and a secret partnership that literally built the foundation of not one, but two automotive empires. This isn't just a story about how Dodge began. It's about how it almost didn't exist, how its founders were. In a twist of fate so bizarre it sounds like fiction, the silent architects behind their greatest rival's meteoric rise. Imagine a scenario where two brothers, brilliant, relentless, and driven by an almost pathological obsession with engineering perfection, held the very reins of an automotive titan, only to be dismissed, underestimated, and ultimately forced to carve their own destiny from the ashes of a bitter corporate divorce. This isn't the sanitized, corporate-approved version you'll find in history books. This is the raw, unvarnished truth, the untold chapter that reveals Dodge was not born in a garage, but forged in the white-hot crucible of resentment and an almost unimaginable wealth amassed through a partnership with none other than Henry Ford himself. Yes, you heard that right. The very name Dodge, synonymous with raw power and independent spirit, was, for years, inextricably linked to the empire of the Model T. But it wasn't a partnership of equals. It was a relationship fraught with tension, a ticking time bomb of ambition ready to explode. The year is 1901. Detroit, Michigan, is a city on the cusp of a revolution, a place where dreams of horseless carriages are beginning to take tangible shape. In the heart of this burgeoning industrial landscape are two brothers, John Francis Dodge and Horace Dodge. These weren't your typical boardroom executives. John, the elder, was a financial wizard, shrewd, demanding, and utterly relentless in business negotiations. Horace, the younger, was the mechanical genius, a man who lived and breathed gears, engines, and the precise art of engineering. Together, they were an unstoppable force. They had already established a formidable reputation with their machine shop, Dodge Brothers Company, specializing in high-precision parts and assemblies. Their craftsmanship was legendary, their attention to detail almost obsessive. They built components with a robustness and quality that few others could match, attracting the attention of fledgling automakers desperately trying to get their vehicles off the ground. But it was in 1903 that their lives, and the future of the automotive world, would irrevocably intertwine with a quirky, visionary, yet often difficult man named Henry Ford. Ford, at this point, was on his third attempt to start an automobile company. His previous ventures had floundered, but he possessed an undeniable charisma and a relentless drive. He needed reliable, high-quality components, and he needed a lot of them. He approached the Dodge brothers, and what followed was a deal that would forever alter the landscape of industrial America. The Dodge Brothers Company became the sole supplier of engines, transmissions, and axles for Ford Motor Company. This wasn't just a supplier agreement. It was a lifeline for Ford. Without the Dodge brothers' unwavering commitment to quality and their ability to ramp up production, the Model T, the car that would democratize motoring, simply wouldn't have existed. But here's the astonishing part, the detail that is so often overlooked. John and Horace Dodge didn't just supply parts. They became major shareholders in Ford Motor Company. They accepted stock in lieu of some payments, a decision that would make them astronomically wealthy. Think about that for a moment. The future founders of Dodge, holding a substantial stake in the company that would become their fiercest competitor. It's an almost Shakespearean irony, a setup for a drama that would unfold over the next decade. As the Model T roared to life and began its unprecedented conquest of American roads, so too did the wealth of the Dodge brothers swell. They were receiving massive dividends from Ford, living lives of opulent luxury, rubbing shoulders with the industrial elite. But beneath the surface of this gilded partnership, a deep chasm was forming. While Henry Ford championed simplicity, affordability, and a one-car-for-all philosophy, the Dodge brothers harbored a growing contempt for what they perceived as the Model T's primitive design. Horace, the engineer, chafed at the compromises made for cost-cutting, the perceived flimsiness of the wooden-framed bodies, the lack of refinement. John, the businessman, saw an untapped market for a car that offered more power, more durability, more sophistication. They believed they could build a better car, a real car, one that wouldn't rattle itself apart on unpaved roads after a few thousand miles. Their workshops, even while churning out parts for Ford, became clandestine laboratories for their own designs. They were sketching, prototyping, dreaming of a vehicle that embodied their ethos of uncompromising quality. The tension between the brothers and Ford grew unbearable. Ford, known for his dictatorial style, began to resent the influence and wealth of his principal suppliers and shareholders. The Dodge brothers, in turn, felt increasingly stifled, their creative genius constrained by Ford's vision. It all came to a head in a series of dramatic confrontations, culminating in a legendary lawsuit. Ford tried to cut dividends, effectively attempting to squeeze out his wealthy partners. But John Dodge, ever the financial warrior, fought back tooth and nail, asserting his rights as a shareholder. He won. This victory, however, was a Pyrrhic one. It solidified the brothers' decision. They had to break free. They couldn't continue to be the silent architects of someone else's empire, especially an empire they increasingly disdained. The ultimate separation was monumental. In 1919, the Dodge brothers famously sold their entire stake in Ford Motor Company back to Henry Ford for an astronomical sum, an estimated $25 million at the time, which, when adjusted for inflation, translates to billions of dollars today. This wasn't just a sale. It was an emancipation. It was the moment they finally had the capital, the freedom, and the burning desire to unleash their own vision upon the automotive world. And so, with a war chest that dwarfed many nations' treasuries, and a decade of invaluable experience building cars for someone else, the Dodge Brothers Company was officially born as an independent automobile manufacturer in 1914. But they weren't starting from scratch. They were entering the market not as underdogs, but as seasoned giants, armed with unparalleled engineering expertise, an almost limitless budget, and a deep-seated desire to prove Henry Ford wrong. Their first vehicle, the Dodge Model 30, was poised to be an instant game-changer, a statement of defiance and a testament to their unwavering belief in superior engineering. This wasn't going to be just another car. It was going to be a revolution, built on lessons learned and frustrations endured. And what they brought to the table would stun the entire industry, setting new standards for safety and durability that are still felt today, standards that most people mistakenly attribute to other brands. Get ready, because the true legacy of Dodge. The year is 1914, and the industrial landscape of America is holding its breath. Henry Ford, the undisputed king of the assembly line, watched with a mixture of smug disbelief and simmering fury as the two men who had made him rich, his former shareholders, the engineering titans John and Horace Dodge, finally unveiled their ultimate act of defiance, the Dodge Model 30. This wasn't just a new car. It was a gauntlet thrown down, an exquisitely engineered middle finger to the Ford philosophy of crude affordability. You see, the Model T, despite its revolutionary accessibility, was a machine built on compromises. Its chassis and body relied heavily on wood framing, making it lightweight, yes, but also notoriously fragile and susceptible to the elements and, more dangerously, impact. Ford's engineers had accepted this as a cost of mass production. The Dodge brothers, however, saw it as a fatal flaw, an engineering insult they refused to tolerate. This is where the story shifts from a corporate feud to an unprecedented revolution in automotive safety and durability, a secret weapon that immediately separated Dodge from every other car on the road, a technological leap that is almost never credited to them. They were obsessed with one quality above all others: robustness. They didn't just want their car to be reliable. They wanted it to be indestructible. And to achieve this, they turned to a partner named Edward Gowan Budd. Budd was a visionary in metal stamping, and the Dodge brothers provided the massive capital and the technical demands necessary to realize his dream. The result was startling. The Dodge Model 30 became the first mass-produced car in the world to feature a complete, all-steel body. Let that sink in. While Ford and others were still building glorified carriages with wooden skeletons, the Dodge brothers were rolling out machines encased in seamless, pressed steel. This wasn't a minor upgrade. It was a paradigm shift. The all-steel body provided vastly superior structural integrity, longevity, and, critically, protection in a crash. It was a commitment to safety and quality that Ford refused to make for years. This uncompromising quality immediately resonated with the American public, particularly those who actually drove their cars on the abysmal roads of the era. The Dodge Model 30 quickly earned the affectionate moniker Old Betsy and became the preferred vehicle for anyone who needed a machine that wouldn't quit. And guess who else noticed this unparalleled durability? The United States military. When World War I broke out, the Dodge chassis, with its inherent toughness and reliability, became the backbone of Allied transportation. While other manufacturers supplied vehicles, Dodge supplied what were, essentially, tanks on wheels, capable of handling the brutal terrain of the European front. This massive military contract not only bolstered Dodge's coffers but cemented its reputation globally as the builder of the most dependable, rugged vehicles on Earth. The Dodge name, once merely a footnote in the Ford saga, was now being celebrated in newsreels and military dispatches worldwide. The irony must have been crushing for Henry Ford. The men he had tried to control, the men whose genius he had benefited from for so long, were now directly challenging his market dominance by simply building a fundamentally better product, a testament to Horace Dodge's mechanical obsession. By 1917, just 3 years after launching their first car, Dodge Brothers Company was already the fourth largest automaker in the United States. By 1919, they had climbed to a stunning second place, trailing only Ford. Their factories were immense, their production lines humming, and their success was a spectacular validation of their decision to break free. They were not just rich anymore. They were industrial royalty, commanding respect and fear in equal measure. They had achieved what seemed impossible. They had built a company that truly rivaled Ford, and they had done it faster and with a product of demonstrably superior quality. They were living proof that quality could indeed triumph over mere quantity. The Dodge brothers ruled their empire from Detroit with the same fierce intensity they had brought to their early machine shop. They were known for their extravagance, their massive mansions, their powerful yachts, and their legendary drinking habits. They were larger-than-life figures, the embodiment of the roaring 20s spirit before the decade even began. They saw no limit to their growth, no ceiling to their ambition. They were already planning massive expansions, new models, and further innovations that would solidify their place as the undisputed champions of the quality automobile. They believed their time was now, that they were immune to failure, that their sheer will and genius would see them through any challenge. But history, as always, is fond of tragic twists, especially when the stakes are this high. A darkness was gathering on the horizon, not from a competitor's factory or a market crash, but from an enemy far more insidious, silent, and deadly. An enemy that had already begun to sweep the globe, poised to strike at the very heart of the Dodge Empire and obliterate its visionary leadership in a devastating, unimaginable double blow. The stage was set for an apex, a peak of wealth and power so immense it could only be followed by a catastrophic collapse. A sudden, shocking event that would leave the multi-billion-dollar company rudderless, adrift, and ready to be snatched up by the very forces they had fought so hard to escape. The year is 1920, and fate is about to deal the Dodge Brothers Company a hand so cruel, so sudden, that the entire automotive world would reel from the shock, and the entire landscape of the American industry was about to change forever. The sudden, brutal climax of the Dodge Brothers' lives, struck down by the unforgiving Spanish flu in 1920, left an industrial vacuum that threatened to consume the vast, humming engine of their company. But before we explore the shocking aftermath and the desperate scramble for control, we must dive deeper into the very metal and machinery that they left behind. The engineering legacy that was so robust, so fundamentally correct, that it allowed the company to survive years of turmoil after their deaths. This segment is not just about cars. It's about the blueprint for modernity, the hidden genius encoded in the steel and castings of the early Dodge vehicles, details only true engineering fanatics knew, secrets that demonstrate why the brothers were genuinely superior to their rival, Ford. The Model 30, affectionately named Old Betsy, was more than just a steel body. It was a symphony of technical excellence orchestrated by Horace Dodge, a man who saw compromise as intellectual laziness. While Ford was still relying on simple planetary transmissions, the Dodge brothers introduced the world to a far more sophisticated and durable sliding gear transmission. This wasn't just about shifting gears, it was about longevity and efficiency. The planetary transmission was cheap and easy to use, but the sliding gear system, though more complex to manufacture, offered a direct mechanical connection, vastly superior power transfer, and a longevity that made the Dodge legendary. Their approach to the engine was equally revolutionary. While Ford's engine was an exercise in minimalist economy, the Dodge engine, the 35 horsepower, four-cylinder powerhouse, was a masterpiece of precision casting. They pioneered techniques to produce a perfectly balanced, more powerful and quieter engine. But the real genius lay in the often overlooked components. Take the axles, for instance. The Dodge brothers, leveraging their early expertise as parts suppliers, meticulously engineered their own axles that were far stronger and capable of handling greater punishment than the standard industry fare. This commitment to an oversized, heavy-duty drivetrain is the literal root of the Dodge Ram truck ethos we know today, a philosophy of over-engineering established over a century ago. They didn't just build components to meet a standard. They built them to exceed the most brutal hypothetical demands. We must also talk about the electrical system, a frontier of early motoring. The Dodge Model 30 was one of the first cars to standardize an advanced, robust 12-volt electrical system, offering more reliable ignition and stronger headlights than the 6-volt systems common at the time. Imagine the shock and awe of drivers venturing out at night in a Dodge, illuminated by lights twice as bright as their competitors. This seemingly small detail was a massive safety and usability advantage, a silent testament to the brothers' relentless pursuit of practical superiority. Furthermore, the brothers pioneered early steps towards standardized parts and interchangeable components across different batches of cars, a manufacturing feat that sounds commonplace now but was groundbreaking then. This meant easier repairs, lower maintenance costs over time, and a reputation for being the mechanic's favorite car. Another subtle but powerful hook that kept customers loyal. They essentially laid the groundwork for modern, efficient, and user-friendly vehicle servicing. The engineering integrity was so profound that in 1916, Dodge embarked on a publicity stunt that became legendary. A Dodge Model 30 was driven across the entire United States, completely sealed with a notarized document inside, proving its reliability over thousands of miles of punishing, unpaved terrain. This wasn't just a gimmick. It was a physical demonstration of Horace Dodge's obsessive over-engineering. He had designed a car that was fundamentally sealed against failure. The Model 30 wasn't just competing with Ford. It was actively making Ford's simple, wooden-framed product look like an antique. Despite Ford's continuous sales lead, the engineering gap was enormous and it was getting wider. This obsessive focus on engineering perfection stemmed from the brothers' core philosophy. If we can't make it the best, we won't make it at all. Every casting, every gear ratio, every piece of sheet metal had to pass their brutal quality standards. They invested astronomical sums into the finest machine tools, the best metal alloys, and the most skilled labor. The Ford Model T was a commodity. The Dodge Model 30 was an investment, a tool of serious transportation built to last decades. Now, flash forward to 1920. The company's colossal assets, built upon this unyielding commitment to engineering excellence, are suddenly frozen. The two central guiding forces, John, the aggressive financial mind, and Horace, the mechanical heart, are gone. The company is, ironically, too good and too valuable to simply vanish, but it lacks the visionary hand that created it. The engineering division, suddenly without its chief architect, Horace, continued to operate purely on the momentum of his previous designs and the quality standards he had ruthlessly enforced. The question became, could this meticulously built machine, the company, survive purely on the merits of its foundation, without its founders? Could the genius of the dead keep the factories humming? This vacuum of power, combined with the company's immense market share and unmatched quality, created a feeding frenzy among the financial elite. Banks, industrialists, and rival automakers all began circling, recognizing that the Dodge Brothers Company was the richest, ripest plum in the automotive industry, ripe for the taking. But any new owner would have to contend with the profound, complex, and almost spiritual presence of the late Dodge brothers. Their uncompromising standards were literally built into every nut and bolt of the company's infrastructure. Who would dare try to tame this wild, engineering masterpiece? And, more importantly, what would happen to the soul of the company when the engineers were forced to compromise the sacred quality standards set by Horace Dodge? The fate of this industrial giant, built on steel and stubborn defiance, was about to be decided in a series of cutthroat deals and backroom maneuvers, leading to a strange and unsettling ownership period that few remember. And it all hinged on the incredible value and durability of the very blueprints Horace left behind. The sudden silence in the halls of the Dodge Brothers Company in 1920 was deafening. John and Horace, the two pillars of power, the twin dynamos of engineering and finance, were gone, victims of the brutal Spanish flu, a global catastrophe that cared nothing for wealth or genius. The void they left was not just personal, it was industrial. Overnight, the second largest automaker in America, a colossal multi-billion-dollar enterprise built on uncompromising quality and ruthless ambition, was left adrift, its fate resting in the hands of two people ill-equipped for the task. Their widows, Matilda and Anna. This period is the least known, most unstable, and arguably the most tragic chapter in Dodge history. A time when the company's legendary reputation was used as a pawn in a dizzying high-stakes game of financial maneuvering. Matilda and Anna Dodge were now the wealthiest women in the world, holding the controlling interest in an industrial behemoth. But while they possessed immense wealth, they lacked the specialized, cutthroat knowledge required to run a global manufacturing empire. They immediately hired a new management team, but the company, so used to the dictatorial, visionary control of the brothers, began to lose its unique spark. The engineering division, once a hotbed of Horace's revolutionary perfectionism, settled into maintenance mode, relying entirely on the bulletproof designs the late genius had already enshrined in the blueprints. No new major innovations emerged. For years, the company coasted, sustained purely by the sheer, magnificent durability and quality the brothers had literally cast in steel. The very excellence of the original Model 30 became a curse. It required little new investment, masking the managerial decline. But the financial world was not blind to this vulnerability. They saw not a company, but a massive liquid asset, ripe for the plucking. The company was profitable, stable, and carried almost no debt, making it the perfect target. The vultures began to circle almost immediately. The first major buyer was a powerful consortium of investment bankers from the firm Dillon, Reed and Company, led by Clarence Dillon. In 1925, they swooped in and purchased the entire Dodge Brothers Company for a mind-boggling $146 million. At the time, this was the largest cash transaction in industrial history, a staggering sum that underscored the true value of the legacy John and Horace had created. But this was not an acquisition driven by a passion for automobiles or engineering. This was a purely financial play. Dillon, Reed and Company were not carmakers. They were financiers obsessed with leveraging the company's vast cash reserves and market position. The period of ownership under the bankers, 1925 to 1928, is the forgotten era, a time when the Dodge brand soul was almost extinguished. The primary goal of the new owners was to prepare the company for a massive public stock offering, or to sell it quickly at an even higher profit. They continued to churn out reliable cars, but the engineering fire had died down to a faint ember. The relentless drive for quality, the willingness to over-engineer every axle and every gear, was replaced by a conservative profit margin mentality. For the first time, cost efficiency began to overshadow Horace's sacred standards. The cars were still good, far better than most, but the subtle, relentless pursuit of perfection that defined the brothers was gone. The Dodge cars became, ironically, exactly what the brothers had scorned: just another reliable vehicle in a crowded market. The bankers had successfully monetized the genius of the dead, but they had failed to perpetuate it. This corporate stasis left the door wide open for a new, aggressive challenger, a visionary who would eventually capitalize on the Dodge name and its engineering foundation. This challenger was Walter P. Chrysler, a man who had already started his own automotive empire and was known for his sharp mind and ambitious consolidation efforts. Chrysler recognized exactly what the bankers failed to see. The true value of Dodge was not just its profits, but its impeccable reputation, massive dealer network, and robust manufacturing base. He saw the empty shell of a titan, waiting for a new soul, Chrysler began negotiating with Dillon, Reed and Company, and the talks were intense, focusing on the sheer scale of the operation. The bankers demanded a colossal price, banking on the brand's power. Chrysler, however, knew the company was being mismanaged and was slowly losing its technological edge. The final deal, struck in 1928, was another financial earthquake. Chrysler bought the Dodge Brothers company for $170 million, integrating it into the rapidly expanding Chrysler Corporation. This acquisition was a masterstroke that instantly transformed Chrysler into one of the big three American automakers. It gave Chrysler the necessary manufacturing muscle, the immediate market presence, and the reputation for quality that had been meticulously built by the Dodge brothers over a decade of relentless struggle and innovation. But here is the critical twist. When Chrysler absorbed Dodge, he didn't just buy a company. He bought a profound identity, one forged in defiance. The question that loomed over the Chrysler merger was, how do you integrate the soul of a company built on a furious, independent spirit into a conglomerate? Would the Dodge name merely become a badge on a cheaper, less ambitious vehicle? Would Horace's ghost tolerate the compromises necessary for corporate efficiency? The answer lay in Chrysler's shrewd decision to initially keep the Dodge brand distinct, leveraging its reputation for toughness, especially in the truck market. But the long-term struggle was internal. The need for massive profits under the Chrysler umbrella would inevitably clash with the Dodge ethos of quality at any cost. This acquisition set the stage for a new kind of battle, not against Ford, but against the very forces of mass-market homogenization. And while the Dodge name survived, the fierce, independent spirit of John and Horace was now locked in a perpetual struggle for dominance within the structure of a larger, more profit-driven machine. The true legacy of the Dodge brothers was about to be twisted, repurposed, and reborn into the 20th century. But the journey from a banker's trophy to an American muscle icon was paved with compromises that the founders would have violently opposed. The $170 million acquisition by Walter P. Chrysler in 1928 was not the end of the Dodge story. It was a traumatic corporate resurrection. But it initiated an entirely new kind of conflict, an internal war for the soul of the brand, a relentless clash between the uncompromising quality standards of the late Dodge brothers and the fierce profit-driven efficiency of the new Chrysler empire. The immediate challenge for Chrysler was monumental: how to integrate a company whose entire identity was built on being better than the mass market, a quality achieved through massive over-engineering, into a corporate structure designed for maximum output and market share alongside brands like Plymouth. This integration demanded compromise, a word John and Horace Dodge had actively banned from their vocabulary. Yet, it was precisely the Dodge brand's inherent reputation for toughness that Chrysler needed most. The name Dodge carried an almost mythic weight. It meant you would get where you were going, no matter the road. Chrysler was shrewd enough to capitalize on this. Instead of diluting the Dodge car line immediately, he shrewdly focused on leveraging the truck division, recognizing the undeniable legacy of the military-grade reliability established during World War I. This decision birthed the distinct Dodge truck identity, a separation that saved the name from immediate homogenization. But the internal struggle was visible in the blueprints. Engineers who had revered Horace Dodge's strict quality mandates were now forced to review component specifications, looking for areas to save costs. Imagine the heated, hushed arguments in the design offices, reducing the gauge of the steel in a non-structural area, simplifying a bearing assembly, or finding a cheaper supplier for small parts. Each decision was a small betrayal of the Dodge brothers' legacy. This compromise, however, was necessary for survival, especially as the Great Depression began to loom, demanding leaner operations from every automaker. The late 1920s saw Dodge begin to transition its styling, embracing Chrysler's newer, more modern aesthetic, moving away from the boxy, purely functional look preferred by the founders. But even in this transition, little-known engineering secrets persisted, keeping the brand distinct. One of the most fascinating examples of enduring Dodge engineering during this period was their pioneering use of fluid drive systems in the early 1930s. While not a fully automatic transmission, the fluid coupling was a major step towards making driving easier and smoother, reducing shock to the drivetrain and extending the life of the very components Horace had so meticulously over-engineered. This innovation was a nod to the Dodge ethos of durability and refinement, sneaking high-quality engineering under the guise of driver convenience. The 1930s also saw the introduction of the infamous airflow design by Chrysler, a technically advanced but commercially disastrous experiment in streamlining. While the Chrysler and DeSoto airflow models are famous, the fact that Dodge also developed its own Dodge airflow variant, though far more conservative in design than its siblings, is largely forgotten. The Dodge airflow was a technical marvel of weight distribution and safety, utilizing a lighter, stronger unitized body structure. However, the public rejected the radical styling, and the Dodge version, designed to be a durable workhorse even with the advanced engineering, was quickly pulled from the market. This attempt showed the internal conflict perfectly. Dodge engineers were still pushing the boundaries of construction, the airflow safety was immense, but the market's conservatism forced a quick retreat. The true saving grace, the element that kept the Dodge spirit alive through the 1930s, was the unwavering loyalty of the brand's dealer network and existing customers. They remembered the unbreakable nature of Old Betsy and demanded that the new cars, though cheaper, maintain a fundamental level of ruggedness. This external pressure acted as a kind of ghostly check on Chrysler's cost-cutters. Every time they pushed too far, customer complaints and dealer resistance would remind them of the Dodge legacy they risked ruining. The reputation was too valuable to destroy. This struggle culminated in the iconic Dodge D-Series models of the mid-1930s, cars that successfully married the new, flowing style dictated by Chrysler with the underlying mechanical sturdiness demanded by the Dodge identity. These cars were stylish and tough, marking a successful, if painful, transition from the Dodge brothers' bespoke quality to Chrysler Corporation's mass-market strategy. But the most intriguing untold story of this era involves secret prototype development during the darkest days of the Depression. While public production was slowed, Horace Dodge's former team, now working under the tight financial leash of Chrysler, continued to refine high-stress components in secret labs, keeping the flame of perfection alive. They were developing advanced flathead engines that prioritized torque and longevity, engines so reliable they would power Dodge vehicles and light trucks well into the 1950s and beyond, proving that the engineering foundation laid by the brothers had a longevity that spanned generations. This covert dedication to over-engineering was an act of quiet defiance, ensuring that even when the body of the company changed, the heart of steel remained beating strongly. And this hidden strength would become absolutely crucial when, just a few years later, the world would once again plunge into global war, and the Dodge name would be called upon to prove its ruggedness on a scale even greater than before, demanding vehicles far tougher than anything even Horace Dodge had ever imagined.